Bienvenidos al futuro del ecosistema de negocios en México. La Confederación de Cámaras de Comercio, Servicios y Turismo de México se enorgullece en presentar el Global Investment Consulting Center, el primer centro de trabajo compartido y servicios globales integrales diseñado para impulsar y fortalecer las oportunidades de inversión y desarrollo empresarial en nuestro país.
En este centro ofrecemos una amplia gama de servicios especializados que hacen posible que su empresa se desarrolle, se establezca y prospere conjuntamente con nuestra red empresarial en las 32 entidades federativas de México. Entre nuestros servicios, destacamos aquellos que harán la diferencia en su camino hacia el éxito. ¿Está buscando abrir una empresa en México? Le proporcionamos todo el apoyo legal y administrativo necesario para que su proyecto se establezca de manera rápida y segura. Si su meta es traer inversión extranjera, nuestro equipo de expertos se encargará de guiarlo a través de todos los procesos, maximizando las oportunidades de éxito para que su inversión tenga una base sólida para crecer, diferenciarse y llegue a un buen puerto.
Para ello, nuestra ventanilla única ofrece varios servicios como aquellos necesarios para registrar sus marcas y servicios legales digitales de vanguardia, con la tecnología que mejoran la seguridad jurídica y le ahorrarán tiempo y costo. Pero nuestro apoyo no se detiene ahí. También damos la bienvenida a los inversionistas y sus familias, facilitando su integración en México para que su experiencia de expansión sea plena y sin complicaciones.
El Global Investment Consulting Center no solo ofrece servicios, somos su socio estratégico en cada paso del desarrollo de su empresa, brindándole las herramientas y el acompañamiento necesario para que su proyecto tenga un impacto duradero y exitoso en México y más allá.
Bienvenidos al futuro del ecosistema de negocios en México. La Confederación de Cámaras de Comercio, Servicios y Turismo de México se enorgullece en presentar el Global Investment Consulting Center, el primer centro de trabajo compartido y servicios globales integrales diseñado para impulsar y fortalecer las oportunidades de inversión y desarrollo empresarial en nuestro país.
En este centro ofrecemos una amplia gama de servicios especializados que hacen posible que su empresa se desarrolle, se establezca y prospere conjuntamente con nuestra red empresarial en las 32 entidades federativas de México. Entre nuestros servicios, destacamos aquellos que harán la diferencia en su camino hacia el éxito. ¿Está buscando abrir una empresa en México? Le proporcionamos todo el apoyo legal y administrativo necesario para que su proyecto se establezca de manera rápida y segura. Si su meta es traer inversión extranjera, nuestro equipo de expertos se encargará de guiarlo a través de todos los procesos, maximizando las oportunidades de éxito para que su inversión tenga una base sólida para crecer, diferenciarse y llegue a un buen puerto.
Para ello, nuestra ventanilla única ofrece varios servicios como aquellos necesarios para registrar sus marcas y servicios legales digitales de vanguardia, con la tecnología que mejoran la seguridad jurídica y le ahorrarán tiempo y costo. Pero nuestro apoyo no se detiene ahí. También damos la bienvenida a los inversionistas y sus familias, facilitando su integración en México para que su experiencia de expansión sea plena y sin complicaciones.
El Global Investment Consulting Center no solo ofrece servicios, somos su socio estratégico en cada paso del desarrollo de su empresa, brindándole las herramientas y el acompañamiento necesario para que su proyecto tenga un impacto duradero y exitoso en México y más allá.
Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this second webinar of the Confederation of Chambers of Commerce, Services, and Tourism. Good morning, Mr. Enrique Alcázar. Thank you for joining us in this series of webinars on how to do business in Mexico. We are proud to host these events to share with all the community, the international community, on how to properly land here in Mexico and properly do business with full compliance. So today we are having an excellent topic dealing with one of the most important issues when you want to establish companies here in Mexico, and it's how to protect intellectual property. Is an asset, actually. Everything what you have to what you want to develop here by protecting your brand's copyrights, industrial designs, and everything. So Mr. Alcázar is the Vice President of franchises and intellectual property of the Confederation of Chambers of Commerce, Services, and Tourism. It's the oldest, 107 years of history of this chamber, and is the biggest confederation, the biggest organization that actually is composed or has or coordinates 258 chambers in the entire national territory. So thank you very much. Mr. Alcázar has more than 30 years of experience as an expert on intellectual property, franchises, and today he will be sharing with us all the related issues to intellectual property. So thank you very much, Mr. Alcázar, for joining us, Vice President. And here we are eager to listen from you. My name, by the way, sorry, my name is Marcelo Pazos. I'm the director of the Global Investment Consulting Center. As you probably saw in the video we already broadcast, is a center that will assist all the entrepreneurs and investors to establish their businesses here. And Mr. Alcázar will be one of the experts in also supporting your business here in Mexico. So thank you very much, Mr. Alcázar, and we are eager to hear.
Thank you, Marcelo, and thank you, everybody. It's great to be here at this space that we can talk about different topics about how to soft land to Mexico if you want to invest in Mexico. And also, we have a space that we can find opportunities from Mexico to go abroad. So it's very important. When Marcelo said that he was the oldest, I think that he was talking about me, but now it's about the Confederation. The Confederation starts at the same time of our Mexican Constitution, and it's a very important organism in Mexico. And with this initiative to create this global center, I think that we will help not only Mexican companies, but companies from every part of the world to establish here in Mexico, but establish correctly. And today we will talk about one topic that is one of my passions, that is intellectual property. Intellectual property that is almost related to every aspect of our single life. Every day when we start at the morning, we're in contact with several trademarks, to patents, to invents, to copyright. So intellectual property as persons is at almost every aspect in our life. But as entrepreneurship, it's very related to our companies and to the value of our company. So I will share you this presentation I prepared for today. Marcelo, is it looking the full screen?
Yes, perfectly. We can see perfectly.
Well, the topic is protect your main asset in Mexico, your intellectual property. And right now we are in a very important moment of intellectual property regulation in Mexico, as we will see in a few minutes. We have a law from 2020, but the regulation of this law is from 1994. So it's very old and obsolete. And right now at the Mexican Industrial Property Institute, we are working in create a new regulation. I hope that for next 2-3 months, we will have the final draft to be approved and to be enforceable. And it's a very good news because we were waiting, all people in intellectual property were waiting for this regulation. So let me start with this. At any company, we have to ask ourselves, how do we define, create, protect, communicate, deliver, and I think the most important, value. And this is the differentiation, our competitive advantage of our companies. And most of these are at intangible assets, and we have to protect them by intellectual property by laws. So it's very important to have business plans, to have clear objectives of our company, but it's very important to protect this differentiation, to protect anything that it's original, that it's distinctive, or that it's new. So it's very important. Like Peter Drucker, let me tell you, I'm a lawyer. I studied law, but I love intellectual property because it's intimate related to marketing and to innovation. And I found this quote from Peter Drucker. They said that he's the father of the marketing worldwide. And he said once that the business enterprise has two and only two basic functions: marketing and innovation. And marketing and innovation are extremely connected and related to intellectual property. That's why I really like intellectual property and this part. We start with intellectual property issues at the Concanaco a few years ago. It was a topic at Concanaco. They discussed it. We used to have convenience with authorities, but there were not vice presidents of intellectual property, and small business didn't saw intellectual property as a main asset of their companies. They thought that it was only for huge companies, for transnational companies. But nowadays, and since we have been talking about a lot of the issue, and since we have been explaining, and we have this kind of conferences, we have working inside the Confederation and outside the Confederation for a culture of respect, protection, and defense of intellectual property. And I start with respect because all of we are consumers, all of we are users of intellectual property rights. And in Mexico, it's very common, the piracy. It's very common that people use goods that we know that are not the originals, or we are not sure about the origin of those goods. So we have to start by respecting the rights of other people. And it's important that if we want respect, we have to protect our rights. And in Mexico, as Marcelo was telling, and as we will see, there are a lot of possibilities to protect our rights. It depends on the originality, the distinctiveness, or the innovation. But we have to protect, register, or patent our rights to get the exclusive right to use them or exploit them. And then if we have it already protected, we have to defend these rights. Because there are some times that we have the trademark, for example, and somebody is using it, and we do not take any action to protect or to defend this trademark for this bad use at the market. So that's some of the issues that will be at the new reglement. But as I said, if your creation or development is original, distinctive, or novel, you have to protect it. It is part of your assets and increase the value of your company. And in a few minutes, we'll also see the value of the intangible assets and the value of the brands the worldwide, and it's very impressive. We are living in an age of intellectual enterprises. The value lies in the intangible assets. It's not so important the buildings or the land of the machine that you have, but it's very important, this intellectual property assets. If you don't recognize your inventiveness and your creative, why do you expect someone else to do it? and human, and the property, intellectual property rights are human and universal culture, economic, and social rights, and they are referred to creative and embeddedness. So I think that the first step that you have to take in order for an international expansion is to protect your trademark, your patents, your copyrights at the destiny country, in this case, Mexico, because that will be the first asset, the first property, and then you will be sure that you will be able to compete in this new market. I have seen a lot of situations that the company make an investment, and when they try to protect the trademark, they become know that somebody has already registered or something similar, or the patent is not available anymore because of the novelty to get protected in Mexico. So I think that the first step, if we want to make an international strategy to grow our business, is to protect our intellectual property. Then we will create companies, and then we will perform agreements, and then we will make other issues. But first of all, we have to protect our intellectual property, depending on the value of our what are looking for. This slide was very complicated for me to condense all this information just in one slide, because we have here all the intellectual property rights that are able to get protected in Mexico. So on one side, we have the intellectual property right in a strict sense, that is the copyright. It's different, the protection of derechos de autor, that we call it, and the copyright. It's not exactly the same right, because the copyright has mainly economical rights, and derechos de autor, as we know them from Berna International Agreement, includes economical and moral rights. So it has an interesting difference, very technical. We won't go to that deep today, but we have by one side all the kind of copyright or intellectual rights. We are talking about literature, music, dramatic, dance, pictorial, all that we learn at the early school about the arts, and also architecture, cinematographic, audiovisual, radio, computer. The software in Mexico is protected as copyright, applied arts, and compilations. And we also have, related rights or neighbor rights to these creations. And these are for the artists and performers, the publishers, the producers, and the radio broadcasting organizations. So what we're protecting here are related to the originality of this right. Okay. On the other side, we have this reserve of rights. This is only in Mexico. This reserve of rights are not at all the countries, but it's important to know that we have them here. And they are referred to periodical publication, like newspaper, like magazines, periodical broadcast. Also, the podcast can be protected as periodical broadcast. Characters, characterization of fictitious characters are important. The names of the artists or groups, musical groups, and also creativity and investment. Advertising promotions are also protected. And this is near to the originality, but what we are protecting here is the distinctiveness. For example, the creations will be enforceable for the life of the creator, the artist, and 100 years more. They can be exploited economically. On the other big side, we have the industrial property. The intellectual property in Mexico is regulated by the author law, and intellectual industrial property by the industrial property law that we will profundize more abroad. That we have distinctive signs, we have trademarks, we have nominative trademarks, figurative trademarks, three-dimensional trademarks that are the traditionals. And since 2018 in Mexico, we have an important modification of law, and we admit non-traditional trademarks like olfactory brands or trademarks like sound brands, like holographic, or trade dress like a brand. It's a very great advance of our regulation because we didn't recognize this kind of trademarks. We recognize also collective and certification trademarks. We have also notorious, known, and famous trademarks, and it has to be with all the knowledge and the value of the brand at the market. And we have also trade names, advertisements, like jingles. We have also geographical indication and origin denominations. So we have a very huge protection. Mexico is part of different international agreements that brings us protection for a lot of these figures. For example, geographical indications, it's a very important institution at bilateral or trilateral commerce agreements, and denomination of origin are regulated at the Berna International Agreement. So both are very important, and well, there's an issue. We have also protection for new creation, for the invents that we protect as patents, utility model, industrial design, industrial models, and industrial drawing that is part of industrial design. And I think that's very similar to anything that we have at most of all of our countries, because Mexico is also part of the WIPO, the World International Intellectual Property, and we're part mainly of the same treaties at international level, but these are some particularities in Mexico. And when you apply for the registration of a trademark, we have certain particularities. For example, the opposition right wasn't recognized in Mexico till 2018 for a trademark, for example. No? We have also this neighbor or related rights to new creation that are integrated circuits diagrams, industrial secrets, that's very important, and vegetable varieties, it's very important. This vegetable varieties is the only one that is not regulated by the industrial property law. It has a different regulation. And as you can see at this slide, you can protect almost any part of your creativity or your investment in inventiveness in Mexico. You can protect all your creations, all your trademarks, or your inventions. And we have a very good and renewed law. Our current law from 2020, it's very important to mention that the former law was from 1991, so it was very important to get it renewed. I would like to present the definition, the law definition of a trademark in Mexico, that is understood to be any sign perceptible by the senses. The older definition was that it was any sign to be seen, perceived by the see, but right now is by any senses and capable of being represented in such a way as to determine the clear and precise object of protection. It will be distinguishing goods or services from others of the same kind or class in the market. And as I told you, since 2018, we have included non-traditional brands, trade dress, olfactory and sonorian, and also holographic brands in Mexico. I would like to mention, it's just a general culture about the denomination of origin that we have in Mexico, accordingly to the Berna International Treaty. And in Mexico, we have all these different denomination of origins, the tequila, mezcal, raicilla, bacanora, charanda, sotol. All of these are alcoholic beverages. Almost all of you, I think that you know tequila, but mainly mezcal, perhaps. But raicilla, bacanora, and charanda, sotol are not so common. We have also handcraft like olinala, like it's olinala, talavera, it's very important, and also olinala, talavera, and amber from Chiapas that are related to handcraft. It's very important. We have also all kind of products like chile, like yagualica or chile habanero from Yucatan. Also rice from Morelos and vanilla, and coffee from Veracruz and coffee from Chiapas, and cacao from Grijalva. And you know, Mexican mango are really delicious, and mango ataulfo from Chiapas. So these are Mexican denomination of origin. If you want to use them, you have to get an authorization by the authority. And as I told you, since we will have a brand new reglement, the indication of origin will get a huge relevance at our legislation. Trade secrets and the last law modification in our new law from 2020, there were some modifications to trade secrets regulation. I think it's very important to mention it because sometimes we have business plan, we have some information, market information, and we don't know how to protect it. We know perfectly how to protect the trademark, how to protect an invention, a patent, or also a copyright, but this information that means getting some economic or commercial advantage is not so easy to protect, so it's important to mention it. We will understand as trade secrets and information of industrial or commercial application keep confidential by the person exercising his or her legal control. So it's important to have a controller of the information in the company, which means obtaining or maintaining a competitive or economic advantage over third parties in the performance of economic activities and in respect of which he or she has adopted sufficient means or systems to preserve its confidentiality and restrict access to it. And it's very important to get all measures to preserve the confidentiality and to preserve the restrict access to the information. The information of an industrial secret has to be contained in documents or in electronic or magnetic media, optical discs, microfilms, and we have to have it, the background of the information. Who is the intellectual property rights for? And it's very important because it's for any individual that has this creative or inventive attributes. And as I told you earlier today, the creativeness and the inventiveness are rights for any individual, are human rights. It's very important for researchers, developers, and academics, also for artists and creators from the agricultural sector. It's very important, all these inventive issues. It's very important to have them protected for all the industry, of course, and our sector, the commerce, services, and tourism. The part of the distinctiveness is fundamental to protect and to grow our sector. Also, the intellectual property is important to the nations and to the general consumer public. I'll talk to you about the legal framework because I'm sure that you will find some similarities at your countries. We have our constitution, the political constitution of the Mexican United States. At the Article 28, we talk about precisely the right that will have the creators or the inventors or anybody that create or invent something. Also, we have our federal copyright law, our federal law, the protection of intellectual property. As I told you, it's from 2020. Our federal law on plant or vegetable varieties, and there are several different laws that impact the intellectual property and industrial property relation, like consumer protection. When we talk about advertising, we have to consider all the consumer protection, labor laws, tax laws, criminal laws, personal data laws, economic competition laws, also prevention and identification of operations with resources of illicit origins. All these regulations are related to intellectual and industrial property laws. It's very important. We have a recent law that it's a federal law of the protection of the cultural heritage and indigenous and Afro-American peoples and communities. And we have found a lot of contradictions among the intellectual and industrial property laws and this protection of the cultural heritage, because the frontier is very complicated to determine. But actually, the new reglement of the protection of industrial property law will define a lot of points that are complicated. As I told you, Mexico is part of the World International Intellectual Property Office that handle most of the international treaties related to intellectual property, 26. Some of these treaties are related to protection, some of them to registration, and some of them to classification. For example, NIS is related to classification, PCT, Patent Cooperation Treaty, and the Madrid Arrangement are related to registration, and Bern, Paris, Lisbon, both are related to protection. We also, as part of the OMC, Commercial World Organization, we are part of these TRIPS, that are ATPIC, that are agreement on trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights. And as you know, since 1994, Mexico were part of NAFTA, the North America trade agreement, includes Canada, United States, and Mexico. A few years ago, 2019, it gets renewed to the USMCA, US, Mexico, and Canada. And next year, as you have already here, we will have to renegotiate and to, actualize this international trade agreement with US, Mexico, and Canada. It's important to mention that our new law from 2020 was attending some of the changes that become from this USMCA, or as we call it in Mexico, the TEMEC, es el Tratado México, Estados Unidos y Canadá. Also, we have a trade agreement with the European Union, and we have an agreement with Asia Pacific Convention. So Mexico has trade agreements with more than 50 countries. We have like 17 trade agreements, but they include more than 50 countries. So that's a very important issue if you want to invest in Mexico, or the regulation and the connectivity that we have with other countries. The US, Mexico, and Canada last agreement at the Chapter 20 is related to intellectual property issues, and it has three main principles: to promote innovation and creativity, to facilitate the dissemination of information, knowledge, technology, culture, and arts. And it's very important that it's not only innovation and creative, but it's also dissemination of information, the right for information that is also at our Constitution, culture, and arts. And to promote competition, and also open and efficient markets. So it's very important to keep in mind these principles, because they are part of these negotiations and of these issues. Also, I would like to talk about our Federal Protection Act, or regulation or law to industrial property. It was published on July 1st in 2020, effective from November 5 in 2020. And as I told you, it abrogates the industrial property law from 1991. So it was very necessary to get an actualization or renewal of this law. And as I told you, the reglement of this law, of the industrial property law from 1991 is actually from 1994. And at this law, the actual law, the current law, it says one of the transitory articles that the old reglement will be enforceable till we have a new one. So, as I told you, we're very enthusiastic because last week we had a world meeting at the INPI, the Mexican Intellectual Property Institute, and we're working on the new reglement that has to satisfy a lot of requirements that need to be actualized. So this is a very important law. I don't will read all the contents of the law, but it's important to know the structure. We have a general provisions. We have inventions, utility models, industrial designs, and layout designs of integrated circuits, all related to new creations. No? The Title 3 is specific for industrial secrets. Title 4 is for trademarks, for all distinctive figures like trademarks and trade names and advertising. And the procedures are at Title 5, but we are talking about geographical indication and origin denominations, and then declaration of administrative, for example, infraction or any other possible bad use of trademarks. And then we have infractions, administrative sanctions, and also crimes. So it's important for companies and organizations to develop clear policies, protocols, and best practices to identify our rights of intellectual property, including all distinctive signs, all invention, all creations, and all confidential information, and to identify how far that we have them protected. Then we have to evaluate if we can extend our protection or if we are not violating any third-party right, because we find sometimes that when we are using a trademark or an image, we can be invading the rights or vulnerating the rights of a third party. So it's important to perform this deep analysis and to perform any actions that you have to do to protect, to register, or to patent your rights to get your exclusive protection. You have to maintain this portfolio of rights, considering all renewals, all payments, and to maintain it alive. And remember that your rights are also dynamic, so you have to monitorize if you have new creation, new brands, new advertising, and it's important for you to get it protected. In Mexico, for example, the trademarks, we have the NIS classification, so we have 45 class, so you have to determine at what class do you have to apply to protect your products, your services? No? So it's important. And if it's necessary, you will have to apply or implement actions to defend your rights. Sometimes, and it's better to get it extrajudicial, but sometimes we have to apply for administrative actions or commercial or even criminal actions. Including border measures that are just to be very efficient here in Mexico. And I want to explain you why your intellectual property is very, very valuable. Here we can find the top 10 valuable brands in Mexico. This is from Kantar. I will give you the source of this information. But you can find the 10 more valuable brands. We can find that there are a lot of technology, retail, payment like Visa, and also we have a franchise that is McDonald's. Here is a list, Kantar Brands 2024 Most Valuable Global Brands. This is a brand new studio. They deliver every year, and we always are checking the new entrants, which brands are not here anymore. But you can check the value of this 100 most valuable brands, and you can understand the value of intellectual property at our reality at this time, and you can start figuring out how can you get more value for your intellectual property and to insist in that if you are looking to grow to a new market, protecting your intellectual property is very important. And here we have how the composition of categories of the most valuable brands is performed. We have business, technology, and service platforms, and media and entertainment as the winners of the most important part of this pie of the participation of this most valuable brands. And we have different other categories. Obviously, you will have access to this presentation, but you have here the source of the information if you want to profundize. The whole study of Kantar is very interesting, and we can check all of this information. We have newcomers and re-entrances. I would like to include this slide because Corona is the only Mexican brand that is part of this list of the top 100 most valuable brands. I get this information from Brand Finance that it's a company that make also important studies, and it's in order to considering how this intangible assets value has grown from the last 30 years. And it's very impressive how these assets have become more and more valuable. I have also this information from Standard & Poor's 500. And I really like this information because it's a comparison between intangible assets like trademarks, franchises, copyrights, license, goodwill, patents, the branding, and tangible assets like equipment, machinery, buildings, vehicles, stock, land. And you can check how the value of intangible assets, mainly referred to intellectual property rights, has become has been grown from the last 50 years. So it's really impressive, and it's like a huge sign for everybody to protect our assets, not only for secure, not only for exclusiveness, but for value of our company. And it's important, and we're next to the end of this conversation, but it's important to talk about how to value these intangibles, how to value these brands, these patents. And there are different methodologies that we can take. No? For example, the methodology of cost-based. How would it cost me to construct this brand again, or to replace this brand from the market, or the market base, no, the transaction value of the brand? I love this, the based on revenue and flows, the historical information, the EBITDA of the asset, of the good. It could be the brand, the patent, or any other, or the agreement, the franchise agreement, and the projection of this revenue and flow. No? So I insist, if your creation or development are original, distinctive, or novel, you have to protect it because it's part of your assets and increases the value of your company. And to insist that the value of the companies nowadays lies in intangible assets. Well, thanks a lot. You will find all my information, my WhatsApp, and all at this QR. And finally, here is my summary, but I think it's not more important, just knowing that
it is important. It is important.
Okay, it's important. Well, let me tell you just to share part of my trajectory. I'm president of Alcázar company. I found this firm in 1994. I'm vice president of trademarks and intellectual property at Concanaco. I'm very proud of it. I'm part of council of the Mexican Franchise Association. I'm part of FCI, Frank Consulting International. the main international consulting network in franchises. I'm also professor at postgrad and master's level at first level institution like Universidad Panamericana in Mexico, Guadalajara and Aguascalientes, LITAM, that is another well-known university in Mexico. I have some classes of intellectual property, technology transfer, and of course, franchising. I'm part of the Mexican Association for the Protection of Property, of Intellectual Property, for the International Trademark Association, for the International Franchise Association. I'm a lawyer with specialty in senior management at the PADE, at business law, at the Universidad Iberoamericana, intellectual property at the time, franchise management at Nova Southwestern University, and ecosystems entrepreneurship. I have represent the Mexican Franchise Association at the World Franchise Council in Madrid, in Seoul, in Manila, and last year in Kuala Lumpur. And also I collaborate with several media as advisor, columnist, and have experience in conference. We'll have the Mexican Franchise Show at the beginning of March. All of you are invited, of course. And well, this is our information. I hope it will be useful for all of you to have the information. And I think, Marcelo, that perhaps we'll have some time for another participation or some questions.
Thank you very much. Yeah, every second Tuesday of each month, we will be sharing these topics on how to do business here in Mexico. Next month, we will have a representative of Banco Base, it's a bank, where they will talk about how to open a business account here in Mexico for foreigners, entrepreneurs, and investors. It will be very important. So thank you very much for joining us. And now we thank especially to our Vice President of Franchises and Intellectual Property, Mr. Enrique Alcázar. Thank you very much and have a great time until we see on the next month, next second Tuesday of next month. Have a great day. Goodbye.
My pleasure, Marcelo, to be here. And hope to see all of you in Mexico very soon.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bienvenidos al futuro del ecosistema de negocios en México. La Confederación de Cámaras de Comercio, Servicios y Turismo de México se enorgullece en presentar el Global Investment Consulting Center, el primer centro de trabajo compartido y servicios globales integrales diseñado para impulsar y fortalecer las oportunidades de inversión y desarrollo empresarial en nuestro país.
En este centro ofrecemos una amplia gama de servicios especializados que hacen posible que su empresa se desarrolle, se establezca y prospere conjuntamente con nuestra red empresarial en las 32 entidades federativas de México. Entre nuestros servicios, destacamos aquellos que harán la diferencia en su camino hacia el éxito. ¿Está buscando abrir una empresa en México? Le proporcionamos todo el apoyo legal y administrativo necesario para que su proyecto se establezca de manera rápida y segura. Si su meta es traer inversión extranjera, nuestro equipo de expertos se encargará de guiarlo a través de todos los procesos, maximizando las oportunidades de éxito para que su inversión tenga una base sólida para crecer, diferenciarse y llegue a un buen puerto.
Para ello, nuestra ventanilla única ofrece varios servicios como aquellos necesarios para registrar sus marcas y servicios legales digitales de vanguardia, con la tecnología que mejoran la seguridad jurídica y le ahorrarán tiempo y costo. Pero nuestro apoyo no se detiene ahí. También damos la bienvenida a los inversionistas y sus familias, facilitando su integración en México para que su experiencia de expansión sea plena y sin complicaciones.
El Global Investment Consulting Center no solo ofrece servicios, somos su socio estratégico en cada paso del desarrollo de su empresa, brindándole las herramientas y el acompañamiento necesario para que su proyecto tenga un impacto duradero y exitoso en México y más allá.